Hello again, algebra. Here we are, another math video, another day, another math video. Here's your latest warm-up. Go ahead and pause this and work these problems out. Okay, so hopefully you've got some answers for the first three. Maybe you have one for four, maybe not. We'll talk about it. So looking at number 1, it's an addition problem. Number 2 is subtraction. Number 3 is multiplication, and we know how to take care of those because that's what we've been studying for a little while. Number 4, though, looks a little different. So again, like I said, we'll talk about it. Number 1, it's an addition problem. We're going to do the 2 rules of algebra, which is create clever cancellations and do the same thing to both sides. So we're going to make our sides. We're going to recognize that we're adding, and so we have to do the opposite, which is subtract. And we're clever to subtract 2 from both sides because that is what creates this cancellation. And you have v equals 10 minus 2, or 8. Is 2 plus 8 10? Yes, it is. And so you know you are correct. Number 12, 16 minus h equals 6. Now there's a couple of ways to go after this problem. One way would be to create your sides and to take out that 16 in the first step. So you would subtract 16 from both sides. And you have 16 minus 16, which is nothing. But remember, if there's a negative sign, it's not gone yet, so it has to come down. Negative h equals 6 minus 16. 6 minus 16. So it looks like we have negative 10. Well, if the opposite of h is the opposite of 10, then h must be 10. Is that right? Is 16 minus 10 6? It sure is, so we know you're right. Now we could look at 2 another way. We can create these 2 sides, and we could take out that h first by adding h to both sides. It's still creating a clever cancellation and doing the same thing to both sides. It's just another way of looking at it. Now the h's cancel from this side, and you have 16 equals, well, how do you add an h to a 6? Well, you kind of don't. 6 plus h is what you have to write here. And now you can see that if you subtract 6 from both sides, you have 6's that cancel. And on this side, you have your h. And 16 minus 6 is that 10 that we got from the last problem. Whenever you end up in a situation where you have a negative, if you're subtracting the variable, subtracting the letter, there's really 2 ways of going about that problem. The way I did it first has the least steps, but maybe you see it the way that's on the left, the second way that I did it. Either way is fine with me. All right, so then getting after number 3, 4 times x equals 12 is what's being said here. And the opposite of times, the opposite of multiplication is division. And so we're going to divide on both sides. And what are we going to divide by? 4, because it's clever. You're going to pick 4 because it creates a cancellation. And make sure you do the same thing to both sides. Now 4 over 4 cancels. And you have x equals 12 divided by 4, which is 3. And then we can check it. Is 4 times 3 12? Yes, it is. And so we got the right answer. Just something to think about. Notice how we have these numbers stacked like a fraction. And we say 12 divided by 4. That's because that's what fractions are little division problems. And so when we stack the numbers like that with a fraction bar between them, what we're really doing every time is division. And so just, make a note of that. But that brings us to the idea of number 4. Notice how we're starting out now with a stacked equation, stacked terms. X divided by 2, and that equals 4. Well, solving that is what we're going to learn today. And so if you didn't get number 4, that's fine. We're going to learn how to do it today. But before we get to it, get out your notebook, pause the video, write your questions, write your summaries, and then get a page ready for today's notes. Alrighty, start out your new notes at the top with your topic, solving one-step equations with division. And your essential question is, how can you solve simple equations with division? Be sure to write that topic and the essential question at the top of your notes, and remember to put the topic and page number in your table of contents. You can pause and do that right now if you want to. All right. So we've got one more property for the moment, and it is the last property for now. We're going to learn more later. And this is called the multiplication property of equality, and it's like the addition property or the subtraction property or the division property because it allows us to do something to an equation in order to solve it. And so the multiplication of property of equality allows you to multiply on both sides of an equation. So it says you can multiply on both sides of an equation. You can multiply on both sides of an equation. That's your law. They're letting you know that you can do that. So let's take a look at this example. We have x over 2, which is another way of saying x divided by 2. And so since we're dividing, we can multiply to isolate the x, to get the x by itself. So I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then we'll talk about what's kind of going on behind the scenes. If I want to multiply on both sides, remember I have to create a clever cancellation. I have to choose the right number to multiply by. And in this case, and in every case, we're going to choose the number that's on the bottom. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2. Now here's where things can get a little bit confusing. First of all, when you take a look at what I've written here, it might be really tempting to think that I have a mixed number. You know, things like this, 1 3/4. That's not what I have here. I made this little dot to remind myself that I am multiplying. I'm not creating a mixed number. I'm multiplying that 2 times that x over 2. That's one thing to keep in mind. Don't get confused with that. Oops, I did the wrong thing. I'm going to get rid of this real quick. When I'm multiplying by 2 on both sides, what I'm really doing is multiplying this side by 2 over 1. Do you remember how any number can be written as a fraction, and you could just write it by putting it over a 1? Well, that's kind of what we're doing here. We're multiplying both sides by 2, and we can write this right side, or this left side, as 2 over 1 times x over 2. And we can just still do the same thing and put times 2 on that side to keep our two sides straight. Now notice what we have here. We have a multiplication of fractions problem. That's why we reviewed this. And you multiply straight across the top. 2 times x is just 2x. And 1 times 2 is 2. And on this side, you have 4 times 2, which is 8. Now don't get crazy. We won't have to do this every time. I'm just showing you why it works. Now look at what we do for the next step. Do you see how we have 2x over 2? That should remind you of what you do when you're multiplying and you're trying to create a cancellation. 2 over 2 is just 1, and so you can get rid of that. And the answer is x equals 8. Okay? So that's kind of the longhand way of doing it. You don't have to do it this way, but I just kind of wanted to show you that's what we're doing in the background. So now I'm going to show you the way to do it. Whoa. I'm going to show you the way to do it. It's a little bit more simple looking. Oh, Miss Waite, what did you do? That was weird. This is a crazy video this time, you guys. So if we want to solve x over 2 equals 4, notice that we are dividing x divided by 2. And if you are dividing, you want to do the opposite, which is multiplication, and you want to be clever about it. So make sure you multiply on both sides by the number that is in the denominator. And so we're going to multiply both sides by 2. Now, I showed you before how this is really 2 over 1 times x over 2, and there was a couple of steps. But those steps are going to happen every time, so we can shortcut it. We can shortcut it by just doing this. Boom. And then all we have left on this side is x. And x equals 4 times 2, which is 8. Okay? All that stuff that I showed you before is just to show you that that's how it works, but really, this is fine. Now we can also check this, because we can take this 8 and we can plop it right back in there for x, and we can ask ourselves, is 8 divided by 2 equal to 4? Well, yes, it is. And so we know 8 is the correct answer. So that's what it looks like. Now we're going to do it a bunch of times so you get used to it. Math is always crazy looking when you first do it, but then you get into the rhythm of it and you'll find that it's really not too bad. So looking at number 1, we have x divided by 5 equals 2. We're going to create our two sides. We are dividing by that 5, and so to undo it, to create a clever cancellation, we're going to multiply by 5 on both sides. There we go. And then these 5s cancel. It's magical. There's a lot going on when we just cancel those, but we don't have to do it because it happens in the background every single time. And on this side we have x, and that equals 2 times 5, which is 10. And then we can ask ourselves, is x, oh sorry, not x, we solved for x. I'm not doing a great job in this video. I hope you guys are okay. Is 10 divided by 5 2? Yep. And so we have the right answer. All right, looking at number 2, let's do it again. We're going to create our two sides. This time we have -2 equals m divided by 16. Well, we want to create a clever cancellation, so how about we multiply both sides by 16? We are going to cancel those guys, and on the right side we just have m, and then we have 16 times -2. Well, a negative times a positive is negative, and 16 times 2 is 32. Right? Yeah. I just want to check it. Yeah. All right. -32 is our answer, and we can check it. Is -2 equal to -32 divided by 16? Well, if we don't know, we can pick up a calculator and we can plug it in. -32 divided by 16, what do we get? Ah, -2, which is what we thought. And so this is our correct answer. All right, number 3, here we go. Create our two sides. Creating a clever cancellation would mean that we multiply both sides by 29 this time. The 29's cancel, and we have a equals 5 times 29, which is 145. Are we right? Is 145 divided by 29 equal to 5? Well, let's see. 145 divided by 29. Sure enough. And so we have the correct answer. That looks a little like a 9, so I'm going to make it look more like an A. So again, every time we do an algebra problem, we're basically doing the same two things over and over. We're creating a clever cancellation, and we're doing the same thing to both sides. Now, this word clever makes it so we kind of do slightly different things every time, because we have to look at what's in the problem and see what's going on and decide what we're going to cancel with. But that's the only thing that really changes. Everything else is all the same. Create clever cancellations, do the same thing to both sides. All right, here's an opportunity for you to pause the video, work these two problems out, and then come back and we'll figure them out together. All right? All right, here we go. Number 3. Divide those sides in half. M divided by 4 equals 11. Well, I want to get rid of that 4, and so I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. That creates this cancellation. I have M equals 11 times 4, which is 44. And I can check it. Is 44 divided by 4 11? It sure is, and so this is the correct answer. Number 4. -9 equals C divided by 6. C divided by 6. Well, it looks like we're going to be multiplying by 6 on both sides this time. The 6's cancel. On this side, we have the C left over. And then 6 times 9, wow, 6 times 9 is 54. Is this positive or negative? Well, a positive 6 times a negative 9 is going to give us negative 54. And we can check it. Negative 9, is that equal to negative 54 divided by 6? Yeah, it certainly is, and so that is the correct answer. One small thing. Sometimes your letter is in the bottom of the problem. You have 4 divided by x this time equals 2. And don't lose your mind. You're still just going to create a clever cancellation and do the same thing to both sides, but there's going to be one more step. Remember how I told you before that you're going to multiply in these kind of problems with the denominator, the thing that's in the bottom of the fraction or the little division problem? You're still going to do that. It's not going to change, but it's going to look different. Notice how there's an x in the bottom of this thing. Well, let's multiply both sides by x, because you can do that. These x's cancel, and we have 4 equals 2 times x, or 2x. Now, I bet you know what to do with that. It's 2 times x, and so to get rid of that 2, you're going to divide by 2. Make sure you do the same thing to both sides. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and these 2's cancel to give you x. And there you go. And we can plug that 2 back into this and ask ourselves, well, is 4 divided by 2 2? Yes. And so this is the correct answer. So you don't have to worry. No matter where that variable is, that letter is, you're still going to create a clever cancellation and do the same thing to both sides. It's just that it might look different depending on where that letter is. Let's see this a couple more times. 25 divided by d equals 5. You're still going to create a clever cancellation by multiplying both sides by the denominator, but this time it's a letter times d on both sides. These d's cancel, and you have 25 equals 5 times d, or 5d. And now it's a multiplication problem, and so you're going to divide by 5 on both sides. Create a clever cancellation, do the same thing to both sides. 25 divided by 5 is 5, and that equals d. Are we right? Is 25 divided by 5 5? It sure is. And so we've got the right answer. One more time, This time we've got a y in the denominator, but we don't have to worry. We're just going to do the same thing that we always do. It's a division problem, and so we will multiply by the denominator, which this time is y. We're going to do it to both sides. Now these y's cancel, and you have 34 equals 2 times y. And then dividing both sides by 2 to create that cancellation gives us 34 divided by 2. 34 divided by 2 is 17. And that equals the y that's left over. And we can ask ourselves, is 34 divided by 17 2? Let's try it. 34 divided by 17. Yeah, it is 2. And so we have the correct answer. The point I'm trying to make is that no matter what, you're going to look at a problem, you're going to create a clever cancellation, and you're going to do the same thing to both sides. It really doesn't matter the situation. The word clever keeps popping up because you're going to pick something different depending on the problem to cancel with. But if you understand inverse operations and the fact that you have to do the same thing to both sides, you're going to be just fine. I believe in y'all. I think you can do this. The topic today was solving one-step equations with division. Your practice is another quizzes. I kind of like these quizzes. I hope you do too, because they're kind of convenient. This one's called one-step equations with division. And your essential question, can you answer it? How can you solve simple equations with division? If you can't answer it, you should let me help. All right, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.